In a quiet little town in Ohio where the air smelled of fresh-cut grass and the streets were lined with old oak trees, lived an 8-year-old girl named Lily Carter. Lily was a bright and cheerful child with big brown eyes that sparkled whenever she talked about her dreams. But there was something different about Lily. She couldn't walk. 2 years earlier, a car accident had left her paralyzed from the waist down, confining her to a wheelchair. Despite this, Lily never let her disability dim her spirit. She carried herself with a quiet confidence that inspired everyone who knew her. Lily loved airplanes more than anything else in the world. Every night before bed, she would sit by her window, gazing at the stars and imagining what it would feel like to soar through the sky. Her bedroom walls were covered with posters of jets, helicopters, and vintage planes. On weekends, she would watch old black-and-white documentaries about famous pilots and their daring adventures. "I want to fly," she often told her dad, John Carter, with a wide grin. "Not just pretend, I really want to be up there." John, a hard-working mechanic in his mid-30s, did everything he could to encourage his daughter's passion. He fixed cars at a small garage on the edge of town, earning just enough to keep food on the table and pay for Lily's medical bills. Life wasn't easy, but John always made sure to put a smile on his daughter's face. When she asked him questions about how airplanes worked or why they stayed in the air, he would do his best to explain, even though he didn't know much about aviation himself. One day, while repairing a broken-down tractor at the shop, John met a man named Ethan Cole. Ethan was in his late 50s, with silver hair and a kind smile. He was a retired aerospace engineer who had spent most of his life designing parts for airplanes. These days, he spent his time tinkering with gadgets and visiting local mechanics to get his own projects fixed. John noticed right away that Ethan had a curious mind and a knack for solving problems. As they worked side by side under the hood of the tractor, John couldn't help but share stories about Lily. He told Ethan how much she loved airplanes and how she dreamed of flying one day. "She's got this notebook full of sketches," John said, wiping grease off his hands. "Drawings of planes with wings so big they look like they belong in a fairy tale. I wish I could give her that experience, you know? Just once, I'd love to see her face light up like it does when she talks about flying." Ethan listened carefully, nodding thoughtfully. When John finished speaking, Ethan set down his wrench and looked at him with a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. "You know," he said slowly, "dreams like that don't come around every day. Maybe we can make it happen." John blinked in surprise. "Make what happen?" "A plane," Ethan replied simply. "A small one. Something she can actually use. We've got the tools, the space, and if you're willing, the time. What do you say?" At first, John thought Ethan was joking. Building an airplane sounded impossible, especially for someone like him who barely understood how engines worked beyond fixing cars. But the more they talked, the more the idea began to take shape in his mind. Why not try? For Lily, it would be worth every ounce of effort. Over the next few weeks, John and Ethan started planning. They decided to build a miniature airplane, one small enough to fit in Ethan's barn-turned workshop but sturdy enough to carry a person safely. Since Lily used a wheelchair, they needed to design special controls that she could operate without needing to use her legs. This added another layer of complexity to the project, but neither of them backed down. If anything, the challenge only fueled their determination. As word spread around town about what John and Ethan were trying to do, people began offering their help. Mrs. Harper, the baker who owned the cozy cafe on Main Street, brought trays of cookies and pies to the workshop every Saturday afternoon. "You boys need energy if you're going to pull this off," she said with a wink. Teenagers from the local high school volunteered during their summer break, eager to learn from Ethan and lend a hand. Even Mr. Dawson, the grumpy hardware store owner, donated supplies after hearing about the cause. The workshop buzzed with activity as pieces of the airplane slowly came together. Sheets of aluminum were cut and shaped into wings. Wooden frames were sanded until they were smooth to the touch. Paint cans sat open nearby, waiting to transform the plain metal into something magical. Through it all, Lily remained blissfully unaware of the secret project. John and Ethan had agreed to keep it hidden until the very last moment, wanting to surprise her when everything was ready. Every evening, after finishing work at the garage, John would visit Ethan's workshop to check on their progress. Sometimes, Lily tagged along, sitting in her wheelchair and watching curiously as the men bent over blueprints and tools. She never suspected that the mysterious machine taking shape in the corner of the room was meant for her. Instead, she peppered them with endless questions about how airplanes flew and whether birds ever got jealous of humans for inventing such amazing machines. One chilly autumn morning, as golden leaves swirled in the wind outside the workshop, Ethan stood back to admire their nearly completed creation. The tiny airplane gleamed under the soft glow of the overhead lights. Its body was painted a brilliant shade of sky blue, with white stars scattered across its wings like constellations. Inside the cockpit, custom controls allowed for precise maneuvering, using only hand movements. It was perfect. "This is it," Ethan said quietly, his voice tinged with awe. "We've done it." John nodded, his heart swelling with pride and anticipation. All that was left was the final test flight, and then, the moment he'd been dreaming of for months, showing Lily her very own plane. But even as excitement filled the air, a flicker of unease crossed Ethan's face. "John," he said cautiously, "we need to think about what happens next. Once people find out about well, let's just say it might attract attention we're not ready for." John frowned, brushing off the warning. "Let them come," he said firmly. "All that matters is Lily. Nothing else." Little did they know, their invention was about to change far more than just one little girl's life. The days following the completion of the mini airplane were filled with a mix of excitement and nervous energy. John and Ethan knew they were close to making Lily's dream come true, but there was still one crucial step left: testing the plane, to make sure it was safe. They couldn't risk anything going wrong when the time came for Lily to take her first flight. So, early one Saturday morning, before the sun had even begun to rise, the two men loaded the little blue airplane onto a trailer and drove out to an open field on the outskirts of town. The field was perfect for their needs, wide, flat, and far away from curious eyes. It was the kind of place where no one would ask questions or interrupt their work. As they unloaded the plane and prepared it for its maiden voyage, Ethan double-checked every detail. He inspected the engine, tightened bolts, and made adjustments to the controls. John watched silently, his hands shoved into his pockets to keep them warm against the crisp autumn air. Despite his confidence in their project, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered in the pit of his stomach. Finally, everything was ready. Ethan climbed into the cockpit while John stood back holding his breath. The engine roared to life, vibrating through the quiet countryside. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the plane began to move forward, picking up speed as it rolled across the grass. John's heart raced as he watched the tiny aircraft lift off the ground. It wobbled slightly at first, but then steadied itself, climbing higher and higher into the sky. Ethan circled the field twice, banking gently to test the plane's maneuverability. When he landed a few minutes later, John rushed over, his face split into a wide grin. "It works," he exclaimed, clapping Ethan on the back. "It actually works." Ethan nodded, though his expression remained serious. "It's stable," he said, stepping down from the cockpit. "But we're not done yet. You need to try it too." John hesitated. He wasn't a pilot, and the thought of flying made him uneasy. Still, he knew Ethan was right. If something went wrong during Lily's flight, he needed to be prepared to handle it. Taking a deep breath, he climbed into the cockpit and gripped the controls tightly. Ethan gave him quick instructions, explaining how to steer and maintain altitude. Then, with a final nod of encouragement, Ethan stepped back and let John take the wheel. The second test flight didn't go quite as smoothly as the first. John struggled to keep the plane steady, veering sharply to one side before correcting himself. His knuckles turned white as he fought to stay calm, but by the time he landed, he felt a newfound sense of confidence. "Not bad for a beginner," Ethan joked, though his tone was approving. "You'll do fine when the time comes." As they packed up the plane and headed back to town, John allowed himself to imagine what Lily's reaction would be. She had waited so long for this moment, and now it was finally within reach. He could picture her face lighting up with joy, her laughter ringing out as she soared above the clouds. The thought filled him with warmth, chasing away any lingering doubts. Back in town, life continued as usual. No one suspected the extraordinary project hidden away in Ethan's workshop. To most people, John was just another mechanic working, long hours to support his family. But behind closed doors, the secret buzzed like electricity, fueling the efforts of everyone involved. Volunteers poured in daily, eager to contribute however they could. Some helped paint the plane, adding delicate stars along the edges of its wings. Others brought food or supplies, ensuring that John and Ethan never went hungry during their late-night sessions. Mrs. Harper, the baker, became a regular visitor, always arriving with fresh pies and encouraging words. "This is going to change her life," she said one afternoon, watching as John carefully adjusted the plane's rudder. "Lily's going to remember this day forever." John smiled, though he couldn't help but think about the bigger picture. What if this invention did more than just fulfill Lily's dream? What if it inspired others to believe that anything was possible, no matter the odds? He pushed the thought aside for now, focusing instead on the task at hand. There was still so much to do before the big reveal. As the weeks passed, the plane grew closer and closer to perfection. Every screw was tightened, every surface polished until it gleamed. Finally, the day arrived when Ethan declared the project complete. "It's ready," he announced, standing back to admire their handiwork. "Now all we need is the right moment to show her." John agreed. Together, they decided to wait for a clear, sunny morning, the kind of day that seemed tailor-made for flying. In the meantime, they kept the plane hidden in Ethan's barn, covering it with tarps to prevent prying eyes from discovering their secret. The anticipation was almost unbearable, but they knew it would be worth it. On the chosen morning, John woke up earlier than usual. He tiptoed into Lily's room, careful not to startle her. "Come outside," he whispered, his voice brimming with excitement. "There's something I want to show you." Still half asleep, Lily wheeled herself out onto the porch, rubbing her eyes. At first, she didn't notice anything unusual. Then her gaze fell on the driveway, and she froze. There, parked neatly in front of their house, was the little blue airplane. Balloons were tied to its tail, and a banner stretched across the front that read, "For our little pilot." Lily's jaw dropped. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she took in the sight before her. Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks as she realized what it meant. "Is this for me?" she asked, her voice trembling. John knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Yes, sweetheart. This is your plane. Your dream is finally coming true." Unable to speak, Lily threw her arms around her father, hugging him tightly. Around them, neighbors gathered, cheering and clapping as Ethan explained how the plane worked. Volunteers lined the street, smiling proudly as they watched the culmination of months of hard work unfold before their eyes. With everyone's help, Lily climbed into the cockpit, her hands trembling with excitement as she grasped the controls. John stood nearby, ready to guide her if needed. As the engine roared to life, the crowd fell silent, holding their collective breath. Slowly, the plane began to move, rolling down the makeshift runway before lifting gracefully into the air. Oh, the first time in her life, Lily felt truly free. The world below her shrank into a patchwork of rooftops and trees, and the wind rushed past her face as she soared higher and higher. She laughed, the sound carrying through the crisp morning air, filling everyone who heard it with joy. But as the plane circled above the neighborhood, descending gently for its landing, something unexpected caught John's eye. 7 black SUVs lined the road leading to their house, their engines idling silently. Men in suits stepped out, their expressions unreadable as they approached the gathering crowd. John's heart sank. He had known this day might attract attention, but he hadn't expected it to happen so soon, or in such a dramatic fashion. Whatever these men wanted, one thing was certain. Lily's dream had just taken an unexpected turn. As the little blue airplane touched down gently on the makeshift runway, The crowd erupted into cheers. Lily's face glowed with excitement as she climbed out of the cockpit, her wheelchair waiting nearby. She couldn't stop smiling, and neither could John. For a moment, everything felt perfect. The months of hard work, the late nights and the sacrifices, they had all been worth it to see the joy in his daughter's eyes. But then, John noticed something that made his stomach churn. 7 black SUVs were parked along the road leading up to their house. Men dressed in dark suits stood near the vehicles, watching silently as the celebration unfolded. Their presence was unsettling, like a shadow creeping over what should have been a bright and happy day. Ethan saw them too. His expression hardened as he stepped closer to John. "I warned you this might happen," he muttered under his breath. "Building something like this without proper permits, it was bound to attract attention." John frowned, feeling a mix of anger and frustration. "We didn't break any laws," he said firmly. "This wasn't about making money or showing off. It was for Lily. Just Lily." Ethan nodded, understanding where John was coming from, but he also knew how things worked in the real world. Sometimes even good intentions could lead to trouble. As the men in suits began walking toward the crowd, Ethan placed a hand on John's shoulder. "Stay calm," he advised. "Let's hear what they have to say before jumping to conclusions." Siu, leader of the group, introduced himself as Agent Harris. He was tall and lean, with sharp features and an air of authority that commanded respect. In his mid-40s, he carried himself with precision, every movement deliberate. His suit was immaculate, and his badge gleamed in the sunlight as he held it up for everyone to see. "My name is Agent Harris," he said in a calm, measured voice. "I'm here representing the Federal Technology Regulation Agency. We'd like to speak with you about this aircraft." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some people looked nervous, while others seemed outright hostile. Mrs. Harper stepped forward, clutching her rolling pin like a weapon. "You can't take this away," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "This plane belongs to Lily. You've got no right." "Agent," Harris raised a hand to quiet her, his tone remaining calm. "No one is taking anything away," he assured her. "That's not why we're here." John stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Then why are you here?" he demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. "What do you want?" Agent Harris turned his attention to John, studying him carefully. "What you've built here is remarkable," he said. "A fully functional aircraft designed specifically for someone with physical limitations? That's groundbreaking technology, and frankly, it has implications far beyond this town." John crossed his arms, his brow furrowing. "Implications? What kind of implications?" Harris gestured toward the little blue airplane. "This invention could change lives. Not just for your daughter, but for countless others who face similar challenges. Imagine if this design could be adapted for hospitals, rehabilitation centers, or schools. The potential applications are endless." Ethan chimed in, his curiosity piqued. "Are you saying you want to mass produce it?" "In a way, yes," Harris replied. "But first we need to ensure it meets regulatory standards. Building an aircraft like this requires permits, safety certifications, and oversight, none of which, I assume, were obtained during its construction." John felt a knot tighten in his chest. He had known they were cutting corners by skipping official channels, but he hadn't thought much of it at the time. All he cared about was making Lily's dream come true. Now those shortcuts were catching up with them. Lily, sensing the tension in the air, wheeled herself closer to her father. She tugged lightly on his sleeve, her big brown eyes filled with concern. "Dad, what's going on?" she asked softly. John knelt beside her, forcing a reassuring smile. "It's okay, sweetheart. These men just want to talk. Everything will be fine." Agent Harris crouched down so he was eye level with Lily. "Miss Carter," he said kindly, "you've done something truly amazing. Your courage inspired these people to build something incredible. But now we need your help to share that gift with the world." Lily blinked, unsure of what to say. She glanced at her father, searching for guidance. John hesitated, torn between protecting his daughter's dream and considering the greater good. Finally, he looked back at Harris. "What exactly are you proposing?" Harris straightened and addressed the entire group. "We'd like to partner with you. Our agency will provide funding, resources, and expertise to refine this design and bring it to scale. In return, we'll oversee its development and distribution, ensuring it benefits as many people as possible." The offer hung in the air, heavy with possibility. On one hand, it sounded like an opportunity too good to pass up, and chance to turn a personal project into something that could change the world. On the other hand, it meant giving up control, allowing outsiders to shape the future of something that had been born out of love and community effort. Mrs. Harper spoke up again, her voice tinged with suspicion. "And what happens to Lily? Will she still get to use her plane?" Harris smiled warmly. "Absolutely. This will always belong to her. But imagine how many other children like her could experience the same joy. That's what we're offering, a chance to make a difference." Everyone fell silent, weighing the decision. Ethan broke the quiet by turning to John. "It's your call," he said simply. "Whatever you decide, I'll stand by you." John looked around at the faces of his neighbors, friends, and family. They had poured their hearts into this project, working tirelessly to give Lily a taste of freedom. Now they were being asked to let go of it, at least partially, and trust that their efforts would continue to inspire others. Finally, John turned to Lily. "What do you think, sweetheart?" he asked gently. "If this plane helps other kids like you, would you be okay with that?" Lily thought for a moment, her young mind processing the weight of the question. Then she nodded slowly. "I think it's a good idea," she said. "If it makes other kids happy, we should do it." Her words settled the matter. John took a deep breath and faced Agent Harris. "All right," he said. "We'll work with you, but only if Lily stays involved every step of the way. This started as her dream, and it needs to stay hers." Harris nodded, clearly pleased. "Agreed. We'll make sure she plays an active role in the process." With that, the tension in the air began to ease. The townsfolk exchanged relieved smiles, realizing that this unexpected twist might actually be a blessing in disguise. What had begun as a small-town project driven by love and determination was now poised to grow into something much bigger. Over the next few weeks, life in the small Ohio town changed dramatically. Representatives from the Federal Technology Regulation Agency arrived regularly to document the airplane's design and discuss plans for its expansion. Engineers conducted tests, gathering data to improve its performance and safety features. Meanwhile, John, Ethan, and the volunteers continued refining the prototype, incorporating suggestions from the experts while staying true to their original vision. Lily became the unofficial ambassador of the project, traveling to nearby schools and events to share her story. Her courage and optimism inspired audiences of all ages, reminding them that dreams, no matter how impossible they seemed, were worth pursuing. Photographs of her flying the little blue airplane appeared in newspapers and online articles, drawing attention from across the country. Through it all, John never lost sight of why they had started this journey in the first place. Every evening after the meetings and interviews were over, he would sit with Lily on the porch watching the stars twinkle in the night sky. "You know," he said one night, "this whole thing started because you wanted to fly. Now look at what you've done. You've given so many people hope." Lily grinned, leaning her head against his arm. "I guess my dream got a little bigger than I thought it would," she said. John chuckled, pulling her close. "That's okay. Big dreams are the best kind." As the months passed, the partnership between the town and the federal agency flourished. The little blue airplane evolved into a symbol of innovation and inclusivity, inspiring new technologies designed to empower individuals with disabilities. And though the original plane remained a cherished part of Lily's life, its legacy stretched far beyond the boundaries of their small town. Years later, whenever residents of the community saw a blue and white plane soaring overhead, they remembered the winter morning when dreams took flight, and how a little girl taught them all to aim higher. The partnership between the small Ohio town and the Federal Technology Regulation Agency brought about changes that no one could have predicted. At first, life seemed to move faster than usual. Scientists, engineers, and government officials came and went, setting up temporary offices in the town hall and renting rooms at Mrs. Harper's cafe-turned-lodging. The little blue airplane, once a secret project hidden in Ethan's barn, was now the center of attention. It sat proudly in a newly built hangar on the edge of town, surrounded by cameras, microphones, and curious visitors. For Lily Carter, the whirlwind of activity was both exciting and overwhelming. She had gone from being an ordinary 8-year-old girl with big dreams to a local celebrity overnight. Reporters interviewed her, asking questions about how it felt to fly and what advice she would give to other kids who dreamed big. Schools invited her to speak at assemblies, where she shared stories of determination and teamwork. Her wheelchair, once a symbol of limitation in her own mind, became a reminder that anything was possible with creativity and effort. John Carter tried his best to shield Lily from the chaos, but he couldn't deny the pride swelling in his chest every time she spoke confidently or smiled for yet another photo. Still, there were moments when he worried about the toll all this attention might take on her. Late at night, after the crowds had dispersed and the house grew quiet, he would sit by her bedside watching her sleep. Is this too much for her? He wondered silently. But whenever he asked Lily how she felt, she always gave the same answer. I'm happy, Dad. Really. Ethan Cole, too, found himself caught up in the frenzy. As the original designer of the airplane, he was often called upon to explain its mechanics and share insights into its creation. He enjoyed the recognition, but more importantly, he loved seeing how the invention inspired others. Engineers from across the country visited the town to study the plane's unique features, especially the custom controls designed for someone in a wheelchair. They marveled at its simplicity and effectiveness, calling it a game changer for accessible aviation. Despite the excitement, not everyone in town embraced the sudden influx of outsiders. Some residents felt uneasy about government involvement, fearing that their quiet way of life might be disrupted forever. Mr. Dawson, the hardware store owner, grumbled under his breath whenever he saw agents in suits walking down Main Street. This used to be our secret, he muttered to anyone who would listen. Now look at it, turned into some big national spectacle. But for every skeptic, there were dozens of supporters. Volunteers continued to pitch in, helping refine the design of the plane and assisting with logistics for upcoming events. Even those who had initially been hesitant warmed up as they saw the positive impact spreading beyond their borders. Stories poured in from parents of disabled children who had heard about the project and wanted to thank the community for giving them hope. Letters arrived daily, filled with gratitude and admiration. One crisp spring morning, the town gathered in the field where the airplane had first taken flight. A ceremony was planned to unveil the next phase of the project, a fleet of modified planes based on the original design. These new aircraft were larger, capable of carrying multiple passengers, and equipped with advanced safety features. They gleamed under the sunlight, their blue and white paint jobs mirroring the stars and clouds above. Agent Harris stood at the podium, addressing the crowd. Today marks the beginning of something extraordinary, he said, his voice carrying over the hushed audience. What started as a father's love for his daughter has grown into a movement, a mission to ensure that everyone, regardless of ability, can experience the freedom of flight. This is your achievement, and we are honored to be part of it. The applause was thunderous, echoing across the open field. Lily sat in the front row, her eyes wide with wonder as she watched the planes line up for a demonstration flight. Each one bore a plaque with her name engraved on it, a tribute to the girl whose dream had sparked the entire initiative. When it was her turn to speak, she wheeled herself to the microphone, her hands gripping the sides tightly. For a moment she hesitated, unsure of what to say. Then she took a deep breath and began. I never thought I'd get to fly, she said, softly, her voice trembling slightly. And now, because of my dad, Ethan, and everyone here, I've done it. And so can other kids like me. Thank you for believing in me and for making this happen. This isn't just my dream anymore. It's ours." Her words brought tears to many eyes, including John's. He stood behind her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder as the crowd erupted into cheers. The ceremony ended with a breathtaking display of aerial acrobatics, the plane soaring gracefully through the sky in perfect formation. As they landed, the townsfolk rushed forward, eager to see the new fleet up close. In the weeks that followed, the project gained even more momentum. News outlets picked up the story, broadcasting it nationwide. Celebrities tweeted about it, and companies offered sponsorships to support further development. Donations poured in from people inspired by Lily's journey, allowing the town to expand its efforts. A scholarship fund was established in her name to help disabled students pursue careers in engineering and aviation. Lily, meanwhile, continued to play an active role in the project. She attended meetings with designers and engineers, offering input on everything from color schemes to seating arrangements. Her perspective, shaped by years of living with a disability, proved invaluable. "We need to think about what makes flying comfortable for everyone," she told the team during one brainstorming session. "Not just pilots, but passengers too." Her contributions earned her respect and admiration, not only within the community, but also among industry professionals. One day, while visiting a research facility in Washington, D.C., she met Dr. Emily Grant, a renowned aerospace engineer known for her work on sustainable aircraft technology. Dr. Grant was so impressed by Lily's insight that she offered to mentor her, promising to guide her toward a future in aviation if she chose to pursue it. Back home, life slowly returned to a sense of normalcy, or as normal as it could be under the circumstances. The media frenzy died down, though occasional updates appeared in magazines and documentaries. The federal agency maintained a presence in town, overseeing the ongoing development of the planes, but their operations blended seamlessly into daily life. Residents adapted, finding ways to incorporate the project into their routines. Mrs. Harper's Cafe became a popular spot for engineers to grab coffee and pastries, while the high school robotics club partnered with the agency to create educational programs for younger students. Through it all, John and Ethan remained steadfast in their commitment to keeping the project grounded in its roots. "This isn't about fame or money," John reminded everyone during a town meeting. "It's about making a difference. Let's not forget why we started this in the first place." As summer approached, the community celebrated another milestone: the first public flight program for disabled individuals. Families traveled from neighboring states to participate, their faces lighting up with anticipation. Pilots trained specifically for this purpose guided each passenger through the experience, ensuring their safety and comfort. Lily served as the honorary co-pilot for the inaugural flight, her laughter ringing out as the plane ascended into the sky. Watching from the ground, John felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He thought back to the countless nights spent working in Ethan's workshop, wondering if they could really pull it off. Now, standing amidst cheering crowds and smiling faces, he realized just how far they had come. What had begun as a simple act of love had transformed into something far greater, a beacon of hope for people everywhere. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the town in hues of orange and pink, John joined Lily on the porch. Together they gazed at the stars, imagining all the places those little blue airplanes might go in the future. "You know," John said quietly, breaking the peaceful silence, "this whole thing started with a dream. Yours." Lily smiled, leaning her head against his arm. "And now it's everybody's dream," she replied. For the first time in months, John allowed himself to relax, knowing that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they had already achieved something truly remarkable. The little girl who once dreamed of flying had taught an entire town, and perhaps the world, that the sky was never the limit. As the months rolled on, the impact of the Little Blue Airplane project continued to grow. What had started as a small-town effort to fulfill one girl's dream was now a nationwide movement, inspiring people from all walks of life. The fleet, of modified planes designed for accessibility, became a symbol of hope and innovation, traveling to cities and towns across the country. Each flight carried not just passengers, but also stories. Stories of resilience, courage, and the belief that limitations could be overcome with creativity and determination. Lily Carter, now 9 years old, found herself at the heart of this movement. She wasn't just a passenger or an observer anymore. She was a leader in her own right. Her name appeared in newspapers, magazines, and even on television shows dedicated to highlighting extraordinary individuals making a difference. Yet despite the attention, Lily remained humble and grounded. To her, none of it felt like fame. It was simply proof that dreams, no matter how small they seemed at first, could ripple outward and touch countless lives. John Carter watched his daughter's transformation with a mix of pride and awe. He often thought back to the days before the accident, when Lily ran around the backyard chasing butterflies and giggling until her cheeks turned red. Those memories were precious, but so was the person she had become after facing such a profound challenge. "She's stronger than I ever imagined," he told Ethan one evening as they sat on the porch sipping coffee. "Stronger than any of us." Ethan nodded, leaning back in his chair. "It's funny how things work out," he said. "We set out to build a plane for her, and instead we ended up building something much bigger. For everyone." The two men sat in comfortable silence, listening to the crickets chirp and the distant hum of engines from the hangar. The sound reminded them of how far they'd come since those early mornings in Ethan's workshop. Back then, their biggest worry was whether the plane would actually fly. Now their concerns revolved around managing the growing demand for accessible aviation technology and ensuring that the project stayed true to its roots. One of the biggest challenges came from balancing progress with authenticity. As more funding poured in, there were pressures to expand rapidly, to push boundaries and create even more advanced designs. While these opportunities were exciting, they also raised questions about priorities. Was it better to focus on perfecting the current model or to experiment with new ideas? Should they prioritize speed and efficiency or stick to simplicity and safety? These debates played out during weekly meetings between the town's volunteers, federal representatives, and industry experts. Everyone had opinions, and tensions sometimes flared. Mrs. Harper, who had become an unofficial mediator thanks to her knack for keeping peace over pie, often reminded the group of their original goal. "This isn't about being fancy or cutting edge," she said firmly during one particularly heated discussion. "It's about giving people wings. Don't lose sight of that." Her words resonated deeply with John and Ethan, who agreed that staying connected to the community was essential. They made sure to involve local residents in every decision, hosting open forums where anyone could share their thoughts. This approach not only strengthened trust, but also fostered a sense of ownership among the townsfolk. After all, this project belonged to them as much as it did to Lily or the federal agency. Despite the challenges, there were moments of pure joy that reminded everyone why they were doing this. One such moment occurred during a special event held at a rehabilitation center in Chicago. A young boy named Max, paralyzed from birth, took his first ever flight in one of the modified planes. His parents stood on the tarmac, tears streaming down their faces as they watched him wave excitedly from the cockpit. Later, Max approached Lily, holding out a drawing he had made of the plane. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. "I didn't think I'd ever get to fly." Lily hugged him tightly, her own eyes glistening. "You can fly anytime you want," she said. "This is your dream too." Stories like Max's reinforced the importance of the project and reignited the passion that had driven it from the start. But not everything went smoothly. There were setbacks, technical issues with the planes, disagreements among team members, and occasional criticism from skeptics who questioned the practicality of the initiative. Some argued that the resources being poured into accessible aviation could be better spent elsewhere, while others dismissed the project as nothing more than a feel-good story without lasting impact. John and Ethan refused to let negativity discourage them. Instead, they used it as motivation to prove the doubters wrong. They worked tirelessly alongside engineers to address problems, test solutions, and improve the design. Slowly but surely, the planes became safer, faster, and more reliable. Feedback from passengers helped refine the experience, ensuring that each flight was as comfortable and enjoyable as possible. Meanwhile, Lily continued to inspire those around her. Her confidence grew with every public appearance, and she began speaking more openly about her journey, not just as a pilot but as someone living with a disability. During a visit to a middle school in Columbus, she shared her thoughts with a gymnasium full of students. "Being in a wheelchair doesn't mean you can't do amazing things," she said, her voice steady and clear. "It just means you might have to find different ways to do them. And sometimes those different ways turn out to be pretty cool." Her message resonated with kids and adults alike, sparking conversations about inclusion and innovation. Teachers reported seeing a shift in attitudes among their students, who started treating classmates with disabilities with greater respect and understanding. Parents wrote letters thanking Lily for showing their children that kindness and empathy mattered more than differences. Back in the Ohio town, life settled into a rhythm of purpose and collaboration. The partnership with the federal agency proved fruitful, leading to breakthroughs in other areas of accessible technology. Wheelchair-accessible vehicles, adaptive sports equipment, and innovative medical devices emerged as spin-offs of the original project. Even Dr. Emily Grant, the aerospace engineer who had befriended Lily, joined forces with the team to explore eco-friendly alternatives for powering the planes. By the time autumn arrived, painting the trees in shades of gold and crimson, the project had reached new heights. Plans were underway to establish a training program for aspiring pilots with disabilities, giving them the skills and certifications needed to pursue careers in aviation. Scholarships funded by donations allowed participants to attend without financial burden, opening doors that had long been closed. Lily dreamed of joining the program someday, though she knew it would take years of hard work and dedication. For now, she focused on her role as an ambassador, traveling to events and meeting people whose lives had been touched by the project. Each encounter left her feeling grateful, not just for what she had achieved, but for the connections she had made along the way. On a chilly November morning, the town gathered once again in the field where it had all begun. This time, the occasion was bittersweet. Agent Harris and his team were preparing to leave. Their mission was complete, and they were moving on to oversee similar initiatives in other parts of the country. Though their departure marked the end of an era, it also signaled the beginning of something new, a legacy that would continue to thrive without direct oversight. During a farewell ceremony, Harris addressed the crowd, his tone warm and sincere. "When we first arrived here, we saw a community united by love and determination," he said. "What we didn't realize was how much we would learn from you. You've taught us that true innovation comes not from technology alone, but from the human spirit, the desire to lift each other up and make the world a better place." His words brought tears to many eyes, including John's. As Harris stepped down from the podium, he walked over to Lily and knelt beside her. "Remember," he said softly, "the sky is yours, always." Lily nodded, smiling through her tears. "Thank you," she replied, "for helping us make it happen." With that, the agents packed up their equipment and drove away, leaving behind a town forever changed by their presence. In the days that followed, residents reflected on how far they had come and what lay ahead. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The dream that had started with a little girl and a mechanic would continue to soar. That night, as snowflakes began to fall, blanketing the quiet streets in white, John and Lily sat together on the porch. Above them, the stars twinkled brightly against the dark sky. Somewhere in the distance, the faint hum of an engine could be heard, a reminder of the freedom and possibility that awaited. "You know," John said, breaking the peaceful silence, "we did good, kiddo. Real good." Lily leaned her head against his shoulder, her smile soft and content. "Yeah, Dad," she whispered. "We sure did." And as they sat there, wrapped in warmth and wonder, they knew that the journey was far from over. The little blue airplane and the dreams it carried would keep flying, touching hearts and changing lives for generations to come. Years passed, And the little Ohio town that had once been known only for its quiet streets and friendly faces became a symbol of hope and innovation. The project, born out of love and determination, continued to grow, spreading its wings far beyond what anyone could have imagined. The fleet of blue and white airplanes, now numbering in the dozens, traveled across the country and even internationally, carrying passengers who might never have dreamed of flying. Each flight was a testament to the power of community, creativity, and courage. Lily Carter, now a teenager, stood at the center of it all. She wasn't just the girl who inspired the project anymore. She was a leader, an advocate, and a role model for countless others. Her wheelchair no longer defined her. Instead, it served as a reminder of how far she had come and how much she had achieved. People from all over the world reached out to thank her, sharing their own stories of triumph over adversity. Some were children like Max, who took their first flights in the modified planes. Others were adults who had lived with disabilities for decades, finally finding a sense of freedom they thought was out of reach. John Carter watched his daughter blossom into a confident young woman with pride swelling in his chest. He often found himself reflecting on the journey they had taken together, the late nights in Ethan's workshop, the test flights in the open field, and the moment when 7 black SUVs lined the street outside their home. Those memories felt like pieces of a puzzle that had come together to form something extraordinary. "I never imagined we'd end up here," he said one evening to Ethan as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "It's like a dream within a dream." Ethan chuckled, sipping his coffee. "Well, dreams have a way of growing bigger than you expect," he replied, "especially when they're fueled by people who care." The partnership between the town and the Federal Technology Regulation Agency had evolved into a thriving collaboration. Though Agent Harris and his team had moved on years earlier, their influence remained. The agency provided ongoing support, funding, and resources to ensure that the project stayed on track. Engineers and designers regularly visited the town to exchange ideas and learn from the community's unique approach to problem solving. What started as a grassroots effort had become a blueprint for accessible aviation worldwide. One of the most significant developments came when Lily turned 15. By then, she had earned her pilot's license through the training program established years earlier. It wasn't easy. She faced challenges both physical and emotional, but her determination never wavered. On the day she received her certificate, the entire town celebrated. A parade rolled down Main Street with floats decorated in blue and white. Children waved miniature paper airplanes, and banners hung from lampposts declaring, "Our little pilot soars again." That evening, under a sky streaked with orange and pink, Lily climbed into the cockpit of the original little blue airplane, the one her father and Ethan had built with their own hands. This time, she flew solo, circling the town twice before, landing gently in the same field where it had all begun. As she stepped out of the plane, tears streaming down her face, the crowd erupted into cheers. John rushed forward, pulling her into a tight hug. "You did it, sweetheart," he whispered. "You really did it." The flight marked a turning point, not just for Lily, but for the entire project. It proved that accessibility in aviation wasn't just about giving people rides. It was about empowering them to take control of their own journeys. Inspired by Lily's success, more individuals with disabilities enrolled in the training program, eager to follow in her footsteps. The curriculum expanded to include advanced courses, preparing participants for careers in commercial aviation and aerospace engineering. Meanwhile, the impact of the project extended far beyond airplanes. Innovations sparked by the initiative led to breakthroughs in other areas of accessibility. Wheelchair ramps, adaptive sports equipment, and voice-activated technology became commonplace in schools, hospitals, and public spaces. Even Dr. Emily Grant, who had mentored Lily during her early days in the program, launched a nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing inclusive design. Her work earned global recognition, further amplifying the message of possibility and inclusion. Back in the Ohio town, life carried on much as it always had. The hangar where the planes were stored remained a hub of activity, buzzing with volunteers and visitors. Mrs. Harper's Cafe still served as a gathering place for engineers, pilots, and locals alike. High school students continued to tinker, with robotics inspired by the legacy of teamwork and perseverance. And every year, on the anniversary of the project's launch, the community held a festival to celebrate how far they had come. For Lily, the years ahead promised new adventures. She dreamed of attending college to study aerospace engineering, following in the footsteps of mentors like Ethan and Dr. Grant. Her ultimate goal was to design aircraft that pushed the boundaries of accessibility even further, ensuring that no one would ever feel excluded from the joy of flight. "There's so much more we can do," she told her father one night as they gazed at the stars. "This is just the beginning." John smiled, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever you set your mind to, I know you'll make it happen," he said, "and I'll be right there cheering you on." As the seasons changed and the years rolled by, the spirit of the project lived on. New generations of children grew up hearing stories of the little girl who dreamed of flying and the town that helped her soar. Posters of the blue and white planes adorned classroom walls, inspiring young minds to think big and aim high. Families visited the town to see the original hangar and meet the people behind the movement, leaving with renewed hope and determination. One crisp winter morning, nearly a decade after the project began, Lily returned to the field where it had all started. Now 22 years old and working as an aerospace engineer, she stood beside the original little blue airplane, which had been lovingly restored and preserved. Students from nearby schools gathered around her, wide-eyed and eager to hear her story. "When I was 8 years old," she began, her voice steady and clear, "I didn't think I'd ever get to fly, but my dad, Ethan, and everyone in this town believed in me. They taught me that dreams aren't just things we wish for. They're things we build, step by step, with hard work and heart." Her words echoed across the field, carried by the wind. As she finished speaking, a group of pilots took to the skies in formation, their planes painting trails of smoke against the pale blue canvas above. Below them, the crowd cheered, clapping and whistling as the town celebrated yet another milestone. Later that day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, Lily walked hand in hand with her father along the edge of the field. The laughter of children playing nearby mingled with the distant hum of engines. Somewhere in the distance, a flock of geese flew overhead, their wings glinting in the fading light. "You know," Lily said softly, breaking the peaceful silence, "this place will always feel like home to me. No matter where life takes me, I'll never forget where it all began." John squeezed her hand, his eyes shining with pride. "And neither will we," he replied. "Your dream gave this town its wings, and it'll keep flying forever." As they stood there, bathed in the golden glow of twilight, they knew that the journey was far from over. The little blue airplane, and the dreams it carried, would continue to inspire, uplift, and change lives for generations to come. In a world full of challenges and uncertainties, it served as a reminder that even the smallest spark could ignite a fire bright enough to light the sky.